good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. I know it's lunchtime, and you guys might have pretty much had your lunch or missed it or gonna have it later, but thank you for joining during the lunch hours. So, to begin with a quick introduction, like I'm AKSHATA SAWANT, Senior Developer Advocate at Salesforce, based in London, and I have been a global speaker. I also recently co-authored a book, MuleSoft for Salesforce developers, focusing on MuleSoft. That is a technology that I'm mainly focusing on for almost 7 years now. Um, I would love to connect with you guys on Twitter or LinkedIn, and happy to stay connected for future queries and collaborations and stuff. Uh, Today we are going to talk about AI-enabled API. Yeah, that was the topic. So let's get started. So all of us, we have been like working with APIs. We have either been consuming or producing API. Is there anyone like who has not come across API or who has not used APIs? I'm sure pretty much everyone has, right? Yeah. So, and this is actually the analogy that I have been like ever since I started my career, and I'm sure you guys as well. So, when it comes to API, this is the analogy that they give us about the waiter, that how API actually performs, what API exactly does. So we know it's something for, it acts as a messaging between, it helps you to communicate between different applications, and that's what the analogy actually represents. The waiter is the API here, getting the information from the front end systems or different applications, which could be a customer, and then the API takes the data back and it processes with the backend system, which could be a kitchen or a server. So yeah, this is a quite popular analogy, and today we are going to talk mainly about what we can do with the APIs, with the advent of AI and everything, like how it does. Coming up to the next slide, evolution of APIs. Yeah, so we all know as well, like we all have different career paths. Like I started my API journey like around 7 years back. You might be having a different span. So we have seen the transition of API right from the EJB state, where there was like you heavily, and then the API as a SOAP API, the REST APIs, and yeah, is there anyone still using SOAP APIs? Uh, okay, yeah. So there are a few of them. Of course, I've used REST API, SOAP APIs as well, but that was like quite some time back. But the transition with the APIs, because of the number of consumption of API and the production of API is quite high. So the API sprawling, that has actually led to the API sprawling, which means API is actually diving. I mean, you can find APIs in almost all of the industries, right? As a web service API, or it is also a part of your integration ecosystem, and heavily a part of your integration ecosystem. So basically, APIs are everywhere, and with the technology, the APIs are evolving as well. So today in this session, we're going to actually learn like what influence AI has brought to APIs, and how APIs are actually evolving with like what has AI to do with it. So, um, let's go ahead and talk about AI-enabled APIs. So, when I'm speaking about AI-enabled API, the usual notion you would be getting, I mean, what you might be thinking is just bringing AI to API. There are actually, today I'll be talking about three aspects. Like the first one will be, yes, it's going to be about AI and APIs, but the three aspects out of which the first one is AI APIs. So this is the most common aspect when we talk about AI and APIs. Basically, AI APIs are like something which is already produced by which are already available in the market and available to public, and those are the AI API endpoints that you can consume. You can directly integrate them within your application. I'll give you some examples. So there could be some generative AI API, text language APIs, image or video such APIs, which already has AI enabled in them. So all you need to do is just consume these APIs. You can integrate them in whichever applications you're using. I can give you an example here. So there are some APIs by Google Cloud. So if you just go ahead and if you search AI APIs for Google Cloud, so you get all the options along with the use cases, and you can directly go ahead and embed these APIs in your application, and you're good to go and use it. So this is something that is already available. It's for it has a price as well. You can try them out. So that is the first category. And there are similar APIs coming from Azure AI services. And these are also the pre-built APIs provided by these giant organizations, which you can again go ahead and use it. So that was like the pretty much the first use case of AI APIs that I was talking about. Has anyone okay? Has anyone used any AI API as such in your no, right? Yeah, but we can go ahead, and I think this is the starting point. We're just learning about AI APIs and the capabilities, but definitely in future, if we have to leverage such kind of API, like which could be generative AI APIs, image video AI APIs, then we do not have to build them from scratch. We already have something that is built, and we can just go ahead and use them out. Okay. Then the second category, so this is the image for AI APIs for Google Cloud, and then the AI APIs from Microsoft Azure. So yeah, we have also heard about most of the startups coming up with such kind of ideas. Like yeah, they are coming up with different kinds of like ideas around like to give some kind of product, like the examples that we have seen before. Um yeah, but most of the time they make a call to ChatGPT or any other LLM model. Okay. Uh, Going ahead further, the second type, AI to build APIs. So the first one which we have seen is AI APIs, where we had pre-built APIs which you could consume. The second one is AI to build APIs, like building an API process. Like if you have seen the API management lifecycle, it actually involves a lot of stages, right? From designing an API to simulating an API to publishing an API to the marketplace, making sure it's available to the consumer, making sure it's reusable, it's composable. So API design lifecycle or API management lifecycle is a huge process, and it's actually an iterative process as well. Suppose if I'm designing an API, and if in future if I want to make some changes to the current API specification, then again I have to go back to my original state. I have to redesign the API, make sure the testing, the simulation, making sure it's like available to the network, people are consuming it right well, and the API documentation, the most painful part. So everything, all of this stages, like all of this API documentation, and I mean everything associated with the API lifecycle has to be taken care of. So, in such cases, like when we are talking about the API management lifecycle, we can definitely make use of AI services. So, what I've attached here is a very simple, like a chat GPT thing, like just a command saying that, yeah, this is, I want some example for open API specification for an order management system API, and it has given me the response. So this was a very basic example, I would say, that I have put here, but there are several tools, there are several companies out there who can actually help you out with like designing API. They can also help you out with like API documentation. So as we know, API documentation is actually something we usually avoid. We usually like try to push it ahead, procrastinate, and then that is something that needs to be done because so based on your API itself, we can get an API documentation form. So that's, and definitely there are some tools which we can which are available in the market. If you guys, any of your familiar or you're using such tool, then yeah, you can share with us. Moving ahead with the next part. Okay, AI to build. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed the last one. The third part is actually going to be about. Yeah, we have covered second. It's about embedding your AI API or your API, your simple API with LLMs. So with LLMs or with your own Copilot model. So let me take you back to my Copilot. Okay. So we have, I mean, in the market, there are several Copilot from Microsoft, from Google, from different companies also. So this is my personal, I mean, not personal, I would say Salesforce Copilot. Okay. And what does a Copilot do? Basically, behind the scenes, it's using the OpenAI model, okay, to get the data. So here I have an Einstein assistant, an AI assistant. So I can basically ask Einstein, and there are several actions as well, if you can see. So in future, if I'm talking about a true AI enabled API, so this is how I'm going to bring in the AI and the API together. I could be having my there are few copilot action labels, right? Identify object by name. So this itself could be one API call. So behind the scenes, if I'm making sure, if I want to use leverage this thing, or maybe any of the other actions that I have over here, so they are actually behind the scenes, they are making a call to an API and fetching the data. So I can give you an example how it works. Here I need to just write like, give me customer details of Mark. Okay. So my AI assistance is working behind the scenes for me. It's analyzing the request, and it will match my question with one of the actions present here. And that action is actually an API call. So it will ask me that there are several mark that we have in the system. Which mark are you exactly talking about? So I will give the proper, I will select the username like which I want, Mark Kingston. It will analyze my request again, figuring out the next steps. And then I get the output. So I looked for customer details owned by Marcus, but yeah, sorry. So there are no such details found in the system. So maybe I can just find another one. But behind the scenes, what's happening is it's actually making a call to API and getting the results. So this is how you can embed your APIs with AI models and take them to a next level. So that is actually what I would say as AI enabled API. And yeah, this is taking up some time. Meanwhile, I can also show you another example of where we can use AI enabled AI APIs. So this actually falls in the second category, which we had said about like how we can leverage AI to generate APIs, how AI can accelerate our API development process. So I have yeah, this is intelligent document processing where I can select any of the files. Okay, basically any invoice or purchase order if I have, and I can ask my AI engine to run. So AI engine will like what it will do is um, it will scan the document or any of your purchase order. It will scan the field. It will make sure the fields are populated well, and further you can publish them out on your portal. Okay, and you can also, that actually generates an entire API from scratch for you along with the documentation. So here if you see the demo purchase order, it has actually it has actually created a new API, REST API from scratch with get method and post method for execution. I can also mock and simulate this API by passing on the further information. And yeah, I think this documentation as well, there are several types, there are pages. It has like the entire documentation and everything is auto generated. So this is all done with the help of API, and with these two examples we can see like how AI is actually revolutionizing the API space as well. So yeah, this was actually a bite-sized session, and I mean I tried to cover as much I could. If you guys have any queries, feel free to ask. I'll be here. Like yeah, and yeah, that was it. Thank you.